Hi everyone, I'm Aaron Smith-Levin and I'm back here with Nick Lister. And we're going to do a standalone segment to follow up on something that was mentioned in one of the clips that have been released so far. So we have about 3+ hours of interview recorded, and we've been releasing segments of it so that they're digestible. And Nick, you mentioned in one of the segments, it was the first one that we released. It was the one where you were talking about the incident with the girl who fell through the floor and then went to the chiropractor, and then John Travolta showed up. You mentioned something about Jamie Lesavoy, Tom Cruise's niece, and we didn't actually get into that at all at a later point in the interview, so there's no segment to break out. So we wanted to specifically address that because it's important. It's another great example of how even celebrities are not immune to the whole disconnection aspect of Scientology. So what is it that happened? What was your experience and what was the deal there?
My first real job was working at a Clearwater Academy International in Clearwater. Scientology run school. 99% of the kids are Scientologists. 99.5% of them are Scientologists. And I was like an assistant teacher, right, when I was 17 years old there. And Jamie shows up one day, going to school there, and we had mutual friends. We knew about each other, right? She went to boarding school with a lot of my friends.
About how long ago was this?
I mean, I'm 27 now, 10 years ago.
Okay.
Right? And so she was a writer, I was a writer, and I was 17, she must have been like 14 at the time, right? And so we were just really good friends, right? She was really tight with Allie Epstein, actually, right? Matt's sister, and so we were just always around each other and always hanging out. And
so Matt was your brother-in-law?
Yeah.
And Allie is who?
Allie's Matt Epstein's little sister.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah. So her and Jamie always hung out. So we were always around each other, and we always hung out, and we just kind of like, she just liked talking to me, and we had like a really good friendship. Like I've still got letters from her, you know, signed "I love you, Jamie." You know, like when I worked later that year, when I worked at Applied Scholastics, right? I ended up going through a breakup with a girl, and I wanted to get out of Clearwater, so I got a tutoring job up in Applied Scholastics run by Vanessa Slaughter.
And where is that? I'm sorry to cut you off.
Spanish Lakes, Missouri.
Okay.
Spanish Lakes, St. Louis.
All right.
Right? So it's their flagship Applied Scholastics organization. So leading up to that, I had learned a lot about Jamie. We used to just spend nights talking and whatnot. We were really, really good friends. And I learned about her story. Her uncle is Tom Cruise. Her mom is Cass. This lady Cass does admin and whatnot, whatever she does for Tom Cruise. And she had gotten kicked out of the family by Tom Cruise.
Cass or
Jamie.
Okay.
I don't know why, right? And I didn't find out until later why she got kicked out. Now, it was kicked out with the ability to get back in, but she had to go through Scientology conditions. He started her down in like treason or something, right? She had done a treasonous act. I, being a Scientologist, knew the gravity of what Tom Cruise, how much weight he held, and I didn't really want to know, because if I knew, then I'd be like kind of get in trouble. But in that time, the president's office, which is the branch of Scientology or whatever, that deals with celebrities, right? When a celebrity needs to hire a new assistant or needs to hire a groundskeeper for their house or needs to hire a cook, they go through the president's office. The president's office are the caretakers of celebrity needs, right? When I was at the chiropractic clinic with the young girl who had fallen through the roof but they couldn't take her to a hospital, and then John Travolta showed up, those two ladies were from the president's office. That is who handles celebrities, right? So in that time, I'm obviously a Scientologist frequenting Flag all the time, right? I'm on courses and whatnot.
Because you're living in Clearwater.
I'm living in Clearwater. So the president's office, the president of the president's office, the captain of the president's office, I don't know her name, I could get it. It's curly-haired European girl.
So she was the president, her post, I know who you're talking about.
Right.
She was the president of Flag. In the president's office, there's many staff. Like you got vice presidents for this or that, and you have assistants. The head of the president's office is just the president. The president FSO would be the head of the president's office. Now, whether that's the exact person you were dealing with,
I started getting treated a lot nicer at Flag, and I realized that it's because I had made the president's list. I was on the president's list, or if I wasn't, they knew about me, and I wasn't getting recruited like I used to be recruited. I became like the main I became one of Jamie's main people in her life, right?
Right.
I've got the letters and all of her writing and to prove it, right?
So let me just ask, because anyone watching the video is going to wonder. So you're 17, she's 14. Was there anything going on between you guys?
No.
Okay.
So when she started going to Clearwater Academy, right? I had known her through mutual friends, and she became like my little sister, right? Like we were both writers, but she was really upset in life. Like she wasn't happy with what was going on. She had gotten kicked out of the family, and I never really pressed her for details, but she was just always very upset, and she would always turn to writing, right?
So even though she got kicked out of the family, at this point, she's not kicked out of Scientology. She's not declared a suppressive person. She's just sort of been booted out of the family.
Yeah.
And she lives in Clearwater, and her family's out in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we hang out. We hang out a lot, and she starts telling me about what happened to her. And she always refers to this thing as the incident, whatever happened that pissed off Tom Cruise, and he kicked her out of the family. She always uses the term, he kicked me out of the family, and assigned me lower conditions, and I'm not allowed back in the family until I finish these conditions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to do her conditions, and then she finished treason and whatnot, and then she got onto liability. She went up to Applied Scholastics, Spanish Lakes, Missouri, in St. Louis, to work for, and who became her handlers were Bonetta Slaughter, the CEO of Applied Scholastics International at that time, and her other handler was Gloria Slaughter, I believe Bonetta's oldest daughter.
So let me jump in with a couple questions that some of the people watching might have, because a lot of people watching aren't going to necessarily know everything that we're talking about. So the Applied Scholastics place up in where is it again?
Spanish Lakes, Missouri. It's in St. Louis County.
Okay, so Applied Scholastic is basically kind of an arm of the Church of Scientology that their purpose is to get the educational technology of Scientology into the school systems, to train teachers and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so they've got this big facility up in St. Louis. It's kind of part of the church, but kind of not really part of the church. Bonetta Slaughter is the CEO of it.
Yeah.
And is Jamie going up there as part of her conditions, or is part of the conditions?
She can't be in LA with her family.
Right.
Right. And I'll get to that. Right.
Okay.
But she has to leave, and she goes up there, and Bonetta Slaughter handles her, Gloria handles her, and then Bonetta's personal assistant, to this day I believe she's up there, is Leslie Stubblefield, right? And she was with Bonetta at her old company from AMC Publishing when it was in Clearwater, and then followed her when she became the CEO of Applied Scholastics. So I, in knowing Jamie for that preceding, like, whatever, almost a year, find out that she was up there and she worked for Bonetta day in and day out at Applied Scholastics. She lived with Bonetta in the house that Bonetta built on the campus. I mean, it's a huge, tons and tons of acres of land up there with this big sprawling, it used to be a nunnery or something. Okay. So I'm like, okay, all is fine and well. Jamie must have done something bad enough to do that, but it was really sad to me because she had gotten kicked out when she was 13. She was 13 years old when Tom Cruise banished her.
So let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
What is it, so I understand that she was banished from the family in LA, and I can understand her coming to Clearwater, like it's a place to go.
Yeah.
Why did she have to go from Clearwater up to St. Louis?
Well, she went from LA to St. Louis.
Ah.
And then came down to Clearwater.
Oh, okay.
So whatever the transition was from St. Louis, she was done with it, but she was now under the care of Flag, which is, if you study Scientology, Flag is the Mecca.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
let me quickly explain the concept of a lower condition in Scientology. So essentially, if you've done something bad, there are ethics conditions that have steps that you go through to essentially make up the damage and make it all better. And there's various ones. There's liability, and below that is doubt, and below that is enemy, and below that is treason, and below that is confusion. Basically, depending on how bad the thing that you've done is normally used to determine which condition you're going to be put
And then you
into.
have steps on each one to be able to move on to the next one until you can eventually get into the condition of normal,
Right.
and then
That's
affluence, and then power, right?
So without having to go through a whole treatise on conditions in general, lower conditions when you've done something really bad.
It's a penance,
Okay.
right?
All right. So
in the church, it's used as a penance in her regard, right?
Exactly. So go ahead.
So she's down in Clearwater, still doing her conditions, right? And then we're hanging out all the time, right? And she's telling me, one night she breaks down, and I mean crying, right? And I'm just, who was she living with? She was living with some Scientology family or whatever, and so it was in Bel Air, and we were over there. It was me and mutual friends with her, and later that night we were just talking. It was me and her, and she was crying and saying she had talked to her mom earlier that day, and she said, "I really want to be back with the family. I really want to be back." And and she's like, "Can Tom just like?" Because she had been turned down. She had petitioned, and the way the petition worked sucked. I'll get into that in a second. But her mom wasn't having it, I think she had seen her mom once in like 2 years, and she couldn't see the rest of her family. She couldn't see her aunts or Tom Cruise. She couldn't be around Tom Cruise. And her contact with her mom physically was very limited, right? So she could talk on the phone here and there or however much, but it was, we're also talking about a 13, 14-year-old girl,
right?
Not like an 18, 19-year-old man that goes off to army, This is the 13, 14-year-old girl who got kicked out of the family. And she said that the way it works, because I was trying to console her, and I was like, well, can't you just plead with him or say like, look, I've changed, I'm better, I don't know what you did, I don't think it could be that bad, even if it was drugs, or I don't know what you could have done, but like, this is family, right? And she goes, no, I can't talk about it, but it just, the way I have to do it is I have to petition. So she basically had to put together all of the amends. She had done the hundreds and hundreds of hours of amends for the wrong that she did, delivering an effective blow to the enemy, which is a part of the condition. She had to go create a change in people who had created or transacted similar transgressions, right? The conditions aren't just like, hey, you messed up, now you're going to do double chores. This girl was up in Applied Scholastic Spanish Lakes for like a year or more, working full time for this transgression she did, right?
As a minor.
Yeah, she was doing school and whatnot up there, but it was like school and she worked. That's all she did. No boys, no nothing. I say, and so she's just crying. She keeps crying. So I just gave her a shoulder to cry.
So she was saying that you were talking about the petition thing.
Yeah.
You didn't finish that.
Well, she basically, the way it worked, and this had gotten declined like twice, is she couldn't just write Tom Cruise a letter. She would have to write a letter, a petition, what they call a CSW. It's a military term, which means completed staff work. It's what a soldier or someone or an employee of such governmental status would write, and they would say, here's why I deserve to have this thing I want, right? Time off, or to go see my family, or a raise in pay, whatever. It applied, and Hubbard took it and integrated it into Scientology parlance and actions, and so she had a CSW petition to the president's office. Okay, so the people that handle celebrities handled her.
So the president's office of the local Church of Scientology.
Yeah, so she had to write this petition to them saying, look, here's all the things I've done to make up for my wrong, right? Here is where I messed up. I admit I messed up, and here's why I believe I deserve to now go back into my family. If they approved it, it would go up to RTC, Religious Technology Center. This is what David Miscavige, the head of the church, is over. Okay, he is over the Religious Technology Center, and as the public well knows, him and Tom Cruise are best friends. Right. They ride Ducatis together. David Miscavige was his best man, and David Miscavige, showers Tom Cruise with lavish Burlwood pens and bulletproof bulletproof van limos, that are, like John Brousseau is talking about. And so once it passed those two, so then it would go from the president's office to RTC. If they approved it, then it could go to Tom Cruise. And
so let me jump into a quick question. To the best of your understanding, this request that she's having to send to see her mom again, do you think it's going to the local representative of RTC, or are you under the impression it's going to David Miscavige?
It's going to the top of RTC. I don't know if it's going to David Miscavige. It's going to RTC. And I'll put it this way, growing up in Scientology, that's like it's like being in the Catholic Church and a cardinal doing your confessionals.
Right.
So
we know for sure it's going to at least the local representative of RTC.
Yeah.
We don't know for sure it's going to David Miscavige, right?
No.
Okay.
But it is what it is, right? So
Yeah.
it's going to RTC. It's going to David Miscavige's
His
core
people.
group. Yeah, his people that he directly runs.
Yeah.
Then if they approved it, it would go to Tom Cruise. Well, I don't know if it had ever made it to Tom Cruise. I think she told me it had made it to Tom Cruise once, and he declined it. He wanted more, right? And so once Tom Cruise denied that, right? The future petitions were like the RTC was being very strict with what she had to do.
Right.
Keep in mind,
Because RTC
a
looks bad.
14-year-old girl.
Right.
What a 14-year-old girl needed to do get back into a family.
Right.
Okay.
And I just want to throw in a funny comment here. If RTC approves the petition and then it goes to Tom Cruise and he disapproves it, then now it looks like RTC's not doing a good job.
Looks like
Their standards aren't as high as Tom. So once he
Yeah.
disapproves it the first time, they're more likely to disapprove it after that.
Right.
Right.
And so I don't know exactly how the petitions were going like that. She was bawling her eyes out saying she had tried twice.
Right.
And it had been rejected
Right.
at some level.
Okay.
This was after working for over a year to make
Up
up
at
for
Spanish
it.
Lake.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then she was back down here and she was doing things, volunteering for the church and whatnot. She started going to Clearwater Academy and then going to Flag to do her handlings and keep things up. So things are going on like 2 years now if she hasn't seen her family. I go up. Well, yeah, before I go to Spanish Lakes, the president's office, the captain of the president's office had seen me at Flag, and like I said, I wasn't getting recruited like I used to. I wasn't getting in trouble like I used to. People were nicer to me. I was like, wow, yeah, Scientology isn't bad. Like, this is cool. Meet a celebrity person and things are okay. Like,
Right.
this is good. As long as I'm friends with celebrities until I get rich, like, we can do this.
Yeah.
And she pulls me aside and goes, Neek. And I go, yeah. She goes, Jamie really looks up to you. And I go, yeah, she's my buddy. She's a sweetheart. She goes, take care of her. Look out for her. Okay? She's a good girl. She needs help. You know, and one day she'll be done and she'll have everything back. And I was like, you know, all right, another fucking weird thing in Scientology, but I'm gonna go along with it, you know.
And so at this point, you don't know what she's done.
No,
that's
and
gonna
I
affect
never,
everything.
you know, I never found out from her. I found out from one of her very close mutual friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I go up to Spanish Lakes. I work for Bonetta Slaughter for a few months. I'm a tutor. I tutor this, you know, tutor a kid for them. And then, you know, the whole time me and Jamie talk, right?
She's up at Spanish Lake, or she's in Clearwater?
No, she's
now?
in Clearwater, but she's writing me letters and, you know, sending me her writing and all that, and we're talking all the time. Just like I talk to all of my friends, but, you know, like I said, she was like my little sister, right? And I loved her. And I still have those letters, right? So I'm not making shit up. And I come back, and she's still doing her thing. She's got a boyfriend now and still working. And then I end up joining staff and kind of staying in touch with her. And then we hang. And then when she breaks up with her boyfriend, a childhood friend of mine, right? We hang out a little bit more. And then my life takes a turn for hell in staff, and I disappear from everyone's radar. And last I found out, she's on staff. She's a Sea Org member in LA now. She had joined staff in LA at the LA org, and she ended up becoming an HCO member, like an ethics officer type person. And then she joined the Sea Org a couple years ago, and I believe she's married now. She was actually dating another childhood friend of mine, Timmy.
So you think Jamie's in the Sea Org right now?
I don't think I know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we have mutual friends that are out of the church, but it's the way the church works. So that I find out a couple years ago what the incident was, right? I'm talking to one of her very best friends from boarding school. She goes, you know why she got kicked out, Nick? I said, I don't. She made out with a boy on Tom Cruise's property. Just made out. It was caught by the cameras, security, all Scientologists. If you don't believe me, ask Katie Holmes. They report it to Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise decides it's unbecoming and out PR for a Scientologist in his family to do such a thing. And he kept her from family functions. Like, she hung out with like Marion Henry and Marion's ex-husband. So then she could see her cousin, Marion's son Cal Henry, she saw them, right, and they all knew what had happened to her. I don't know if they knew the exact incident that got her kicked out. A few people did, though. I mean, I know Bonetta and Gloria and Leslie Stubblefield did. Mutual friends of ours from boarding school knew what happened to her, right, her girlfriends. I just personally, as a Scientologist, didn't want to know at the time because it's dangerous to have information like that.
So when Jamie was living in Clearwater, her aunt Marion was living here.
Yeah.
Her cousin Cal was living here. So she saw those members of her family, but not her mother. And she wasn't living with her.
She could talk to her mom on the phone.
But she wasn't seeing her mom.
It was very limited.
Right.
Right? Like, they could, but again, her mom worked for Tom Cruise. It's a busy job, right? And so I know I had heard that she had seen her mom once or twice for brief periods.
Right.
You know? But for the most part, Bonetta Slaughter, Gloria Slaughter, Leslie Stubblefield, and then when she got down here, I don't know who it was. I don't know if it was another Slaughter. I don't know if it was Gloria. I don't even know. Maybe Gloria lived down in Bel Air at the time. She was staying with some Scientologists, but they were wealthy. It was in Bel Air. It was a beautiful 2-story house down in Bel Air Beach. But
okay, so when she was first sent away from Los Angeles, she went to St. Louis to go to that Applied Scholastics Spanish Lake facility.
Yeah.
And she was with Bonetta Slaughter and Gloria Slaughter. So those guys were basically assigned to be Jamie's handler once she got booted out of the family.
Caretaker, guardian, I don't know. Not legally, but like they're her handler.
Right.
She took care of them. And
because Bonetta is very well known in Scientology.
Very. She ran a very, very successful publishing company called AMC Publishing down here in Clearwater for over a decade. And then when the Lisa McPherson case happened, she was like the ringleader.
Well, she was
to squash the protests and to squash the Lisa McPherson Trust.
Right. Well, Lisa worked for Bonetta when Lisa had
That's right. And Bonetta's the one that went and convinced Lisa McPherson to check herself out of the hospital and come back to the Fort Harrison. She went in there with a fucking posse.
Right.
Sorry, freaking posse.
So if anyone can corroborate what happened with Jamie, it would definitely be Bonetta and Gloria.
It would be Bonetta and Gloria. And the thing is, they're not in the church, so they, at very worst, would just have no comment. But the fact is, I'm right, and I have plenty of mutual friends and people to corroborate the entire story. The very worst, if the church and Tom Cruise's people want to say I'm lying, sue me.
Right.
Right?
So one of the things that I take away from this story, I mentioned in the beginning that even celebrities are not immune from disconnection, but this is actually different than that. This is different. This is Tom Cruise being proactive in deciding what family members are even allowed to talk to each other or not. This actually, in a certain respect, has nothing to do with the Church of Scientology itself. It's not. It's not the church stepping in and telling Tom that he's got to.
This isn't the church. This is Tom Cruise.
Right.
Right? The church did not say, we don't like what Jamie did.
Right.
Tom Cruise didn't like what Jamie did.
Right.
Right? And he called the shots on it. He made the decision on behalf of his sister, or disregarding his sister, to take her daughter away from her.
My personal opinion is that one of the things that I don't understand why Tom has done this, and I think it's one of the things that contributes to the public's really weird perception of well, let's just say weird perception of Tom Cruise. There's no reason in the world for Tom to take the church and put the church directly in the middle of his family affairs. Like, that's not exactly normal. But other celebrities don't exactly have that weird thing where the church is literally handling every aspect of his interfamilial affairs. Like, that's another level.
Yeah, but he does, and it was admitted. Like, when he was being deposed in that lawsuit he filed against the magazines for saying that he hadn't seen Surrey in X amount of days, whatever truth or untruth that was, he filed this huge hundreds of $1 million lawsuit, and then they depose him, and they get him to admit was one of the reasons Katie left you, to protect Surrey from going into Scientology. He admitted it. Right? I'm not saying something that isn't already known.
Right.
Right? Like that Scientology runs his life. Okay? That the church interviewed girls and then finally came up with Nazanin Bunyadi. The fact is, they had other girls before that.
Yeah.
You know? And like I said again, I'm telling the truth. Sue me. I have everyone I'd like to depose for it. Right? I'd slay. It's just, I'm right. There's a lot of people that know that story. He just kicked them out. He kicked her out and expected it was just gonna, you know, because he was Tom Cruise, it was gonna all stay insulated, but it doesn't. People speak. That was a 13, 14-year-old girl who cries because she misses her family and feels terrible for what she did, right?
Right.
It wasn't drugs. It wasn't underage sex. It wasn't becoming an anarchist or staging a revolt against the church.
Well, what's crazy is that even if it was drugs or underage sex, the idea that, you know, Scientology believes that doing something like that should result in someone losing their family. And I'm going to jump in here with a comment about some of the stuff that I saw Scientology say about you and your sister and your mother, right?
Go for it.
When your sister, the church had your sister get up on one of these websites, freedom.org, and do some bullshit video about how terrible you and your mom really were and all that kind of stuff, which was horrible to watch. But she talks, the way she characterized the whole thing was that your mom decided to side with someone, you, who'd done horrible things. Now, horrible things was maybe some illicit drug consumption.
It's not horrible.
Right, but that's what I'm saying is what the implication was.
Me and 80% of America.
Right. So what the implication was is that, oh no, you did some drugs? You should lose your mother.
Yeah, right.
Like, what kind of religious movement when the church gets on TV, which is almost never these days, but when Tommy Davis would get on TV, he'd spout some bullshit about, no, the church values the family unit and everything in Scientology, talks about wanting to strengthen the family unit. Yet they put your sister on video to get her to say that you're such a dog for doing drugs that if your mom had to pick between her children, she should have picked your sister. All right. So what would you say if the church came out and said, like they've said about others, Nick's just conspired with all these other bitter, defrocked apostates to get their story straight and tell some sob story to get attention and make money, and that everything you're saying is just bullshit?
This is America. What you say doesn't make it true, right? Calling someone a liar doesn't mean they're not telling the truth, okay? If you want to sue me, sue me. I think it'd be dangerous, as shown when they tried to sue Debbie Cook and they settled with her the day she went on the stand and started talking, and we realized, oh, never mind. We forgot she knew everything we did to her, right? Or when Tom Cruise sued the magazine conglomerate and ended up retracting his lawsuit, right? He went in there like a pit bull and said, never mind. I realized I cannot field these questions about Scientology. Well, I grew up with his niece, right? Like I was very close with his niece. They're mutual friends. These stories, I have dozens of people to corroborate them, right? In a court of law, I've got a wet dream for a lawyer, right? And so that's all I have to say. Don't call me a liar. Don't say I must be on drugs online. I mean, you can. It holds no weight. I'm saying publicly, sue me. If I'm wrong, sue me. And then we'll let the courts decide, right? Because if this is slander, well, then I'm breaking the law, right? But if it's not, well, then shut the fuck up.
Okay, great. All right. Thanks for watching, everyone. Until next time.